Welcome back to our first offering here of 2023 on South Florida Live. Jeff DeForest, we got Mike Lubitz. Lubie's, you're getting better looking, man. Well, with this prosperity that you're enjoying here, with the new home and everything, looking sharp today, and always looking sharp. And one of our favorites to talk to about anything, especially during the Pigskin Playbook. Brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, mile marker 104, the Overseas Highway in Key Largo. The handsome one himself, Mr. John Congemi. John, I know you were what? How did your travels go? I mean. It was a real clusterfuck, I guess. I saw a Southwest Airlines flight. I was sitting out by the pool yesterday for a little while, and I'm looking up in the sky there, and we happen to be like sort of near the flight pattern there by Fort Lauderdale Airport. So you see these planes as they're rocketing their way upward. I saw a Southwest Airlines flight, and then I heard an alarm go off because it was identified as an unknown flying object. They categorize it as a UFO. I mean, they were so unused to seeing it orange and blue. I thought maybe it was a Gator charter flight or something. But how are your travels? I mean, you went to Toronto. Tell us a little about your
Just
holiday.
in Toronto visiting family, and it was easy because it was a direct flight, but the airports were definitely a mess. You're right, Defo, about Southwest. I ride by 595 going down east,
Yeah,
and you see the colors of Southwest on the I guess it would be the north side of the airstrips there, the airfield, and
yeah.
there are 6-8 planes just parked over the last week waiting to take off and nowhere really to go. It's been crazy, I guess, at the airports with traffic and parking and finally getting on a flight and people staying, at different destinations at the airports. I've been a veteran of that through my years of covering college football. Sometimes you have
Yeah.
to get 2 hours of sleep in an airport before you catch a flight. So it's especially during the holidays. It's Thanksgiving and Christmas, the worst two times to travel.
Well, yeah, I was saying the other day before we closed out 2022 on a show, and I was traveling the Big East circuit with the University of Miami basketball team. And so you're in the dead of winter in the Northeast, and it happened to be a particularly harsh winter those 2 years. And it was amazing what you had to do to finagle your way in and out of cities like Pittsburgh, which
Yeah.
can be a problem if they only have like one flight out of there that's going anywhere near your direction, and it gets canceled. Now all of a sudden you're scrambling, trying to find a place where you can get a sandwich with French fries piled to the ceiling there, so you can pass the night and maybe find a hotel room. And it isn't easy, right? Because you've already returned your rental car, and now you're going to go back in
Yeah.
another thing. So anyway, I'm glad you had good travels, and the holiday season treated you well. You look great, by
Yeah.
the way.
Everything was good. I've been worried a little bit about you. I'm glad you got your voice back, but the 8 in the
Yeah.
hook has been bothering me for
Oh
a
no,
couple of
that's
weeks now. And
it's ugly. I do think they get this ninth one against the Jets. I mean, I know people thought they were going to, beat the Packers, that was going to be it. That didn't go well. Last week against the Patriots, unfortunately, Tua out again, and that didn't go well, although Bridgewater was decent for a good portion of the game. But he always seems to have that thing like the USC defense where there is going to be the play that collapses all of the good and negates all of the good that he did throughout the ball game. And, that there it was, that pick six where he got hurt.
yeah, turn the game completely
Yep.
around, and that
Yep.
was the play you kind of circle with that black Sharpie, and you go, wow, you if that's incomplete, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that's tipped to the ground, it's no problem because the Dolphins, you felt like New England wasn't going to be able to do anything offensively
You
Right.
weren't.
to win that game. If you put it on them and you kept winning field position like the Dolphins did at the beginning of the third quarter. New England comes out, they go 3 and out. Pilardi doesn't punt it really well. Dolphins gain 10 or 12, 15 yards. Same thing. Miami doesn't do much, but then New England does less than that. And you get the ball on the plus side of the 50-yard line. You're thinking, okay, this game's going to now turn. And, after the Dolphins give up a field goal and they're still up 14-10, Duggan comes in. I think that was the 7th offensive score for the New England defense. That was his 3rd pick six
Yeah.
of the year. The one guy playing in the middle of the field, he's almost like a rover position where he's just reading the quarterback's eyes, and he's he's able to go anywhere he wants. It led him right to the football, and then nobody can make a tackle. And to combat the injury, to the finger, the pinky finger of Bridgewater, you got Skyler sitting on the sidelines. It's 50 degrees, but still, you haven't done anything in an hour and a half.
He's been on ice for a while too.
Yeah. So always a tough situation for the backup to the backup to go in.
Yeah.
The Dolphins did that at 3 or 4 positions that day: quarterback, left tackle, safety, cornerback. I mean, you're playing guys in a game, a meaningful game, that where you line up on a goal line stand after a timeout, you're not covering a wide receiver. There were things that added up into that game where the Dolphins still had a legitimate chance to win. But you couple all the things that we just touched on, plus 9 penalties for 71 yards, not going to win.
Such ugliness. No, it was ugly.
And I get they have injuries, and I understand their injuries. They're on their 3rd left tackle, and their offensive line was already shaky. I understand that. But at this point, we're looking at every team. They have a lot of injuries. The Bills have played with backup secondary the entire season. Like, once you get to this point and the guys have been gone, it's just what's beat what has been. Like, and I sung his praises. I liked the hire, and he seemed fun. But he hasn't adjusted at all. Like, Mike McDaniel has not made any adjustments, and they still, whatever the quarterback situation is, they have lots of guys that have talent on this team, and Mike McGinnicki might not fit their offense, but the dude can catch balls. Like Raheem Mostert and Wilson are good at doing multiple things. You have Hill, you have Waddle. They were non-factors in this game, and I don't care how good the Patriots defense is. This isn't the freaking Ravens of 2000. And whatever their issues are with quarter, I get it. They have not changed anything. And to me, I know it's his first year, and we poo-pooed it, but this is, for a team that's had a lot of bad Decembers and a lot of bad collapses, this, if it's not number 1, it's top 2 or 3. And at some point it has to fall on McDaniel. And I don't know what he's doing. It feels like he's doing nothing about it. Like, he's just sort of, he looks lost when you watch him in the game, and it's sort of frustrating me. And where I'm like, these are the Packers game and this game, they should not have lost. Even with the injuries, even with all that, the game was in their hands. And they just kept, we're going to keep punting. Screw it. It's like, what is going on with this game? Like, it's just frustrating to watch the team go down the drain.
Well, especially in the second half where we talked about coming out in the third quarter, you're gaining field position. You go down and make a great drive. Teddy kind of push passes the ball into the end zone to Mostert, and it's a touchdown, and you're up 7 points going, okay, now we're going to play defense because Mac Jones isn't going to do squat. They really can't run the football. They don't threaten you down the field. But yet the Dolphin defense, we're always pinning it on the offense. The Dolphin defense has not come up with a big stop in the second half of games since the Baltimore game. I don't think it was. I mean, I'm looking at the goal line stands and the 4th and 1s and all the things that happened early in the season for that defense that made you feel good about it. But when you think about beginning of the 4th quarter against New England, it's 3rd and 5, and Mac Jones finds Myers wide open for 25 yards. And now it kickstarts, the drive. Now you get another 3rd down. You get a PI with Cross and mauling, I can't remember who the receiver was, inside the 5-yard line. And now you've got a 1st and goal at the 5. So you've given, one.
And they have nobody on Myers.
Yeah.
He's out there on the left side,
England,
and he's waving, here.
Yeah.
And they snapped the ball, and the linebacker couldn't get there in time. But,
yeah,
I mean, an easy score from there.
And that really, I think, turned the second half and maybe turned the game, because New England was like, man, this is supposed to be one of the better teams in the AFC. If we win this game, we control our own destiny. All of a sudden, you start believing you can win that game. And they did. They get a sack, they get a 4th and 16, and I think we check it down. Instead of maybe, who cares, that interception there? Just throw the football down the field, right? And but Sealer got a sack later in that sequence of downs. You find Gesicki late, you have a chance with an onside kick, but I think the league stats were 0 in terms of onside kicks successfully by the kicking team this year. So boy, squandered opportunities. You know, Green
You
Bay
need the
game
USC
and
special
this
teams
game.
out there for that to work.
Yeah,
Where they spread
exactly.
like the Red Sea and then just allow the guy to come 20 yards down the field and scoop the ball up.
I think
you
LSU just
blow a
scored
ball
again
game.
as well.
Oh, man. I mean, that was the only game I lost yesterday, my personal bookmaking venture, after my friend hammered me to the tune of 8-1 on the NFL card, which I saw that coming because I was looking at the games going, I mean, this guy's got this locked up here. I'd love to reverse this. But to lose that USC game, I mean, that was to the point spread, much less the game straight up. I mean, just incredible. And we'll get into all of this college stuff. I just wanted to finish up thought here on the Dolphins. I mean, this represents to me just a monumental failure. I don't know that 9-8 and even making the postseason represents something that I'm thinking, wow, this was tremendous progress, because we had so much, reason to hope that, McDaniel was on the right track. I think Tyreek Hill, we were talking about, trades that were monumental that, turned out to be catastrophic, like Russell Wilson, where, you traded away 2 first-rounders, 2 second-rounders, a bunch of players, and then even more considerations for a guy that you're now saddled with who appears to be completely shot and incapable of doing what you wanted him to do. Tyreek Hill, I think, has justified, what they exchanged him for. And you would love to have this guy on the roster. But if they go 9-8, John, same record as last year.
Same record.
I mean, to put it in Miley, what the fuck is that? I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. And we need them to win a game against a team that I don't know. I mean, it looks horrible right now, the Jets, but, they have to win a game just to do that. And then, you now have the Bills and Patriots, and we don't know what's going to happen with that ball game.
Right. You're playing against a team that has nothing to play for in the Jets. So that could be good or bad, because,
They played like that the last several weeks. Like
well,
to play for.
that's what I'm. They have great practice at playing at games like this.
I mean, they're accustomed to this position.
So you could either play really well or just all over yourself. You just don't get out of bed. But the Dolphins, back to your original point about Tyreek Hill, great trade, right? Great getting him on the field.
Whatever
it costs. World of difference. Yeah. For the Miami Dolphins team in terms of lighting up the scoreboard. But you really dig deeper after the surface of the trade and how he made Waddle better, how he made Tua better, how he makes the offense better in terms of play calling for McDaniel. Okay,
he's been a real professional too. I mean, and a huge
been a model
positive catalyst,
right?
For a guy that had
a shady past.
A little bit of a checkered, situation there in the past. I don't remember exactly what it was, but wasn't considered a great teammate before.
Right. And he has been a great teammate.
Yeah.
He's been good with the media. He's been good, off the field. You haven't heard boo from him. But take a bigger look at this thing, guys. You might end up with the same record as last year. Maybe you get in, maybe you don't. But the Dolphins have uncertainty at quarterback, going forward. They have no cap room at all.
None.
Okay, yeah. Zero. They're all in for the next year and a half, 2 years with what they have.
No picks.
No picks. Yeah, let's throw in no draft picks.
Yeah, no draft. They don't participate in the draft.
Anybody wants in a trade.
You're going to have to get rid of Gesicki at some point in the off season. You're going to have to find. Can Armstead possibly tape up and play another season? Maybe, but he might not get through as many games as he did this year.
I think you dig up Sherman Plunkett and let him man on the left side.
Point being, there's a lot of question marks on this team for a team that was out of the gate blazing,
yes,
and then all of a sudden hit the skids after the bad teams kind of fell off the schedule, or the mediocre teams. Detroit's a pretty good team now. But at the time, they were just finding out who they were. But that's kind of what we talked about early in the season. The Dolphins were going to sprint out. If they could get 2-2 out of the gates, we'd be happy. They went 3-1. But then, they get through the lighter part of the schedule. And we said, hey, those 3 away games, if they can beat the Chargers, find a way to beat the Chargers, because you're giving San Fran and Buffalo, who are better teams, probably the edge. They don't return serve at home against Green Bay. And then you lose one at New England in good weather. You figure it was going to be a bad weather game.
Yeah.
But don't get
In
it
their
done.
defense, Green Bay's come on and played much better
Yeah, they're playing
football.
well.
I mean,
They
if
keep the
you watched
Vikings
them in the
ass.
beginning of the year, they were garbage, and you thought that was it, and that Aaron Rodgers wouldn't be there anymore. But of late, even though he hasn't been razor sharp in these victories, Aaron Rodgers, he's been instrumental in what's happened, but not the same Aaron Rodgers that we're accustomed to. Making almost no mistakes. I mean, he's
Right.
thrown some poor long passes, especially where he had guys wide open and missed them. But doing enough there as a team, they seem to have generated a momentum that's going in a positive direction as they have a chance now to make the postseason. When what were they 4-8
Yeah.
at one point
They were
and
they were
floundering?
completely out of it, and that was the game really, the Miami Dolphins at home. I mean,
Yeah,
That
Tua
was a big
throws
one
for
for
over
him, sure.
200 yards in the first half. You felt like you were up 3 touchdowns, and it
Yeah,
was only a touchdown. But the fumble before half, Green Bay scores, and then they come out and score in the third quarter, flip the game right around, and then the interceptions down the stretch killed the Dolphins.
Oh, that was as ugly as it could possibly get. John Congemi here. It's Pigskin Playbook with John Congemi, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. That's mile marker 104, the Overseas Highway in Key Largo. A couple of other things on the pro side, as we do have a lot to be decided here in this last week of the season. I'm wondering, and curious also. I mean, this was a University of Pittsburgh kid,
Yeah.
Damar Hamlin. I don't know if you were watching the game or not sure that they've been playing what actually happened. I've seen it on some newscasts where they showed this young man collapse after he makes a tackle. And, everybody was saying how unprecedented this was. I mean, we've seen guys go down for a long, extended period of time. You're just hoping they move a fingertip or something.
Yeah.
And it is an inherent part of the game. I mean, obviously, these dangers. Now, this is something a little bit different because it's like a flash cardiac arrest, but what was your what was your thought as you were watching this transpire, if you were, and then what do you do about it? I know we're not trying to marginalize the young man's health, Hamlin, but I mean, what do you do about it if you're the NFL? I mean, how do you play this out?
I don't know. I've been kicking that around all night, thinking how they're gonna, get back on the field and play this game. Do you do it like a baseball game where you pick it right back up where you left off? Do you start what do you do? That's a huge because it has huge implications in terms of the playoffs moving forward. But first for Damar Hamlin, that was I didn't watch it live, Defo. I was
Okay.
out at dinner, but when I saw all the replays and got home and watched, I mean, that's such a freak thing to have happened to you on the field where you make a normal play in a game, you stand up, and all of a sudden, you're out on your feet and you're on your back and you're fighting for your life, really. And
And that was a
just
complete collapse. I mean, the guy literally just passed out
yeah,
as he was standing there.
yeah.
That
So
was ugly.
you just all of a sudden your thoughts go to, oh man, get his family next to him, somebody save his life on the field, and the paramedics and both training staffs did a miraculous job of doing their job
Yeah.
and being able to be proficient and smart and all the things you needed to do in that heated of a moment medically for Hamlin to be able to revive him and be able to get him to the UC Medical Center, which is like right around the corner, kind of from the stadium. And gosh, you're praying for the guy that he's going to be okay. Right now, he's still in critical condition. I don't think there's any live updates to change that this morning. But you're hoping that he's going to be able to be breathing on his own and be able to be cognizant and be able to, live a normal life, after this incident. But just a freakish play that I've never seen happen on a field that way in terms of a guy making a play. Usually the guy, kind of rolls over and stays down, and now you're worrying about paralysis. That's the
Yeah.
first thing you're thinking about, but never flash cardiac arrest type of situation because the hit wasn't
No, it wasn't
one of
crazy.
those
No.
velocity types of hits that you would go, you would stand up in your chair, and go, wow, that was
It was fairly
a
routine
very
play.
vicious hit.
Yeah, it was ugly. I mean, we've seen Hank Gathers. I was out in Los Angeles when Hank Gathers collapsed Loyola Marymount, and died. I was talking earlier. Uh, I had a friend that was in a fight that resulted in a ring death, and when talking about it, and he was a perfectly decent guy. He wasn't some guy that was, threatening to eat your children before a fight. Very respectful. Just like to compete in a sport, and that happened to be the sport that he chose. But he knew obviously of the inherent risk, and I was saying earlier, I remember him telling me, when I asked him about his reaction and how he was feeling about it, he said it could have been me. Now, I don't know that playing football, look, anything can happen, right? I mean, you could be playing basketball in a park and hit your head on the pole that,
Right.
holds the basket up, and, you could lose your life. I mean, there's a risk going out there and doing virtually anything. An old geezer like me could easily have a stroke, while out there playing tennis, and I'm not talking about a backhand. Uh, but yeah, I mean, how did you feel about it? There's an inherent risk, and the weirdest thing about it too, about being a football player, especially, is how ingrained it is to just move on after you see a guy down on the field, because it's relatively routine to see players down on the field every
Guys,
four or
you
five
don't
plays.
know
It
how
seems
many
like.
times at a practice, either in high school or in college or in the pros, that a guy goes down on the field and all of a sudden the coach goes, "Okay, let's move the drill."
Yeah,
Okay, let's,
right. Yeah, they
the
were talking
the
about that
guy's
last night. Yeah,
laying in agony,
The Nick
and
Nick
Saban.
and they
Saban.
go, "Okay, let's move up 20 yards. We don't want to ruin practice. Let's keep the momentum. Let's keep
Yeah, lose
going."
those reps. Yeah, exactly.
There's no there's nobody else. The guy's still on the ground 10 minutes
Yeah.
later.
Wow.
So yeah, it's I don't think a player ever thinks about that type of situation before he goes to practice or play. I really don't. And the
Nick
only
Hayes.
time that you do think about it is when it does happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
That I believe that honestly.
Yeah, and this is a unique situation in the sense that this doesn't appear to have been an induced physical injury, although the stress of the game obviously might have had something to do with it, but we haven't seen that before, and I do, like you, feel like they didn't give enough credit necessarily to the medical staff,
Yeah.
because if they kept that guy revived, now they didn't have all of this information. But I thought that ABC, literally, or ESPN, wasted an hour. And you've been in situations where all of a sudden, something took a turn in
Yeah.
your sports story, where you're having a great time talking about, what they should do on 3rd and 10, and then all of a sudden it became a news story.
Right.
And especially being involved in talk radio, as Lubie alluded to. I mean, I've spent weeks talking about Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, not exactly my cup of tea to be talking and providing insight into just a major mind-boggling tragedy. But
Hmm.
I thought these guys did a really weak job last night. I was sort of embarrassed for my chosen profession here, because they didn't really provide any insight into the player or who he was or nothing. I mean, I know they were trying to do things on the fly, but I thought they really mumbled and stumbled their way through that.
I just caught the tail end of it when they were going. Scott Van Pelt was in studio, and
Yeah,
who was it? The former player that he was with,
Ryan Clark.
Ryan Clark. I caught a little bit of that, and then I caught
And I
Troy
guess this
and
happened to
Joe
Ryan
Buck.
Clark, where he was
Yeah,
hospitalized.
yeah. So
Yeah.
he had a really good perspective on things, but I didn't catch any of the other stuff other than when they went back to Troy and Joe in the booth for that very last hit. But I can't comment on that. I all I remember is when the banter was going back and forth in the studio. I thought it was a really good, realistic, thoughtful conversation between a guy that's trying to keep the conversation going, and trying to throw different
Oh, you're talking
angles
about
at a
Van
guy
Pelt.
that went through it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I thought that was pretty good.
Before that, I thought they just laid an egg, man, like fell on their face. By the way, just out of curiosity, because yeah, Troy Aikman is very handsome. He's distinguished. He's had a great career. I don't think he provides much insight into a ball game. And if there was somebody else doing, but for half the money, would you have done it, John?
Yeah, you know what? I would have thought about it for maybe a half a second. Yeah,
Yeah.
for a quarter of the
I
money.
don't find that Troy ever says anything of any great interest or something that I find, whoa, that was interesting. I didn't know that, about the game of football. Which I mean, all of these guys are trying to educate people that have been watching the game since they were 5 years old. So it's not that important to me to constantly emphasize, the strategic stuff so much because we've seen it, right? But I want to know something about who's out there on the field. And that's why I thought, it was especially weak that they never talked about, who this guy is. And
We're
you had,
Yeah, what is
you
this?
had, yeah,
I would
I
have
mean,
thought I would have thought they would have tried to give more background on
Humanize
uh
him.
yeah,
yeah, just what type of kid he was. I wouldn't have been surprised if they would have
somebody
tried to
could
get
speak about him. Yeah, get Narduzzi on
Narduzzi
the phone.
on the
Sure.
on the
Exactly,
on the
Narduzzi,
broadcast,
like,
who coached him 2 years
ESPN,
ago in
like, come on.
college and
We're
recruited him, and give you a little insight about who he was, where he's from, and what he meant to the program there, and how they're feeling, for him tonight. That type of thing.
Yeah, I'm usually very impressed. And we've been in this situation. I'm sure you have too, where all of a sudden you're doing a sports show or whatever, a broadcast, and you have to transition into some kind of a really heavy news.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys do it very well, but I thought these guys really just absolutely bombed last night, and then Van Pelt at least was able to
Yeah.
resurrect some of the storylines there, and
Right.
Clark, I guess, had been through this, so although I'm not a huge fan, he speaks very well, seems sharp, but he's morphed into a little bit of a Stephen A. Smith type for me. Ryan Clark, when his general commentary, he's always screaming
Yeah,
and
he was
very
good.
intense.
He was good last night
Good
because
last
that
night,
was a
yeah,
topic that he could really speak to. But
yeah.
you're right. I guess sometimes
He's
whoever
become
yells the
hysterical. Yeah.
loudest is
Yeah.
the winner. I don't know.
Hey, I saw a friend of ours was down at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. He had some pictures, and it looked exactly as we talk about it. Like this guy was literally enjoying a big chill. He was on his way down to Key West, and he was going to hit it on the way back as they had such a good time there. And that seems to be something that happens to a lot of people that experience Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill for the first time.
I think you're right, Defo. A lot of people that I speak with, when they're driving down, when their destination is past Key Largo, they always end up, veering off to the right to the Bayside and run
Yeah,
into run into Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill,
little
and
square out right there,
yeah,
like
a
mile
little
marker
just down and
104.
out right there at the mile marker, and you either run into the sports bar, you hit the
Yeah.
tiki bar, you go in the pool. If you're looking for a quick lunch, you can grab the Fisherman's Pizza. That might be a little bit
Oh,
delayed lunch,
unless you
because you
have
gotta
mayo with you, that's a little bit
you
overwhelming.
gotta
Yeah,
finish everything on your plate, right?
yeah.
So and then the best part about Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill is when you're there on the weekends, especially on a Sunday when they have the live band going
Oh
and
man.
Dominic and Larry are up there singing and playing, and you just get a cocktail and put your feet up and listen to good music and take in all those beautiful Bayside views, and just chill. And that's the best place to do it, at Jimmy Johnson's.
I mean, when you're curled up in a fetal position, at home and you're watching TV and you're thinking, you can't take another hour of this. And you think about instead, you could be out watching the sun drop into the Bayside in Key Largo as your brother Dominic, who, doesn't take a back seat to Bono when it comes to being able to belt out a tune. I mean, that was capping off a day. You know me, I love my live music. I mean, I go see local bands as often as I can, and I have many friends now in the business that I enjoy seeing all the time whenever they're playing. Uh, but they had a full day of different bands going there. I mean,
Yeah.
Galvano's not like holding back. I'm sure he has to pay, each one. They're not doing it for free. But you usually get like one schlepper bar mitzvah band at one of these places, or some clown with an electrified steel drum
Yeah.
that also makes its own, music, has his own horn section coming out of a computer.
Right.
This was good live. I mean, like energetic music by some great performers. It was fantastic.
It's so much fun going down there because you can do nothing and have a good time, or you
Yeah.
can do a lot and feast like a Viking and have a great time. And especially this time of year with the playoffs coming up, basketball's kicking in a high gear, hockey's in high gear. You've got all the sports on. Golf's going to start to ramp up. So the sports bar is a great option because they serve all the food you would want at a sports bar, only they kick it up a notch. It's just that much better at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. So you never know who you're going to run into, but you're going to have a good time with your crew, just hanging out, and you're going to get first-class food and service. That's always a staple at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill.
No, good times had by all in a great place, beautiful setting. We recommend it wholeheartedly. Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. The accommodations, if you know another couple that you can stand sharing a place with, I mean, it's not like you're going to have to be right on top of each other, because these places are gigantic and absolutely as unique as I've ever seen in terms of accommodations in the Keys, and you can easily share that. So log on to jimmyjohnsonsbigchill.com and check out the accommodations as well when available. A spectacular Lubie. Poor Lubie was sleeping like in the back of a Ford Fairlane that was junked on the side of the road there off of the overseas highway. One of those little backwoods houses that looks like it should have been condemned. And he's outside there sleeping in a car. And we're in the luxury of Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. I still feel some Jew guilt about that, John. But thank you for setting that up.
You'll carry that for a while, yeah.
I got over it already. All right, we're coming back with more. We'll dissect the whole college scene. It was spectacular. A couple of Thriller in Manila type of ball games. And we'll get John's opinion on that. And then, of course, we have the national championship matchup, which I'm regretting, although I don't know that they're going to do this, but I don't think it's impossible. I think that was TCU not like 20-1 in the 4-team field, that they had some enormous odds. And you're thinking, geez, at that price, I mean, obviously they're in there with at least a half a shot against Michigan. So all you have to do is get by that game, and now you're in an enormous winning position, depending on how much money you put up. Because you can hedge off and bet Georgia if you want and make a small score, or, cash an enormous amount of money at 20-1. And all you have to do is win the one game. I guess you should have just bet it all on that game.
Yeah,
no, you're not going to get 20-1 odds, though. But I think they would. I'm not sure what their odds were going into the tournament, but I think they were like substantial, and here they are in a position to win. So we'll see if John thinks they have a chance there. That's coming up a week from last night, a week from Monday night, and should be a very, very interesting game with two exciting games. I don't know how they top those two semifinals. Back with more with John in a moment. Now that
the time
8:39.
Hey, folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched. Steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Recently, we realized it's not just hurricane season that can hurt us. Any time of year, things can happen to your home or business. And the insurance company can be your friend, but they also can be your enemy. Horizon Public Adjusters, Justina Testa, are here for you to help this process go so much easier. Before you call the insurance company, call Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa at 954-809-8752. Would you go into court without an attorney? So why would you go up against an insurance company without Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa? 7 to 10 times more money recovered with a public adjuster than if you went on your own. If there's no recovery, there's no fee. Give them a call at 954-809-8752.
We welcome to the show John Congemi, who joined us for Dateline Dolphins. John, how are you, my friend?
Defo, I'm doing well, and that's not the only thing that's going to reach a new height. I'll be at about 220, 225 after this football season if we visit too much. So the food's outstanding down at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill.
Grab a bagel. and the schmear, plus some Defo and Lubie. Welcome back to the Defo Show.
Welcome back to the show. We're happy to have John Congemi, the Pigskin Playbook, and there were two. I mean, this Hamlin injury last night naturally was capturing most of the attention of people in the news, sports media, and was certainly worthy of talking about. But the college games were a thrill in Manila-esque for me, John Congemi. I didn't catch every second of every one of them. I saw enough of TCU, Michigan. Having unfortunately been put in a position where I was laying points with Michigan, I was never in a favorable position in that game. People are criticizing clock management of Jim Harbaugh, and then all of a sudden, speculation after he was dedicated to being on the college scene, had this wonderful year, surprised a lot of people, especially with big victories late in the season. Speculation now he's open to taking a pro job, which you're figuring there are going to be a few. What do you think? I mean, both teams were doubted throughout the season. Most people thought Michigan had that early cupcake schedule and was eventually going to come back to the pack and fall apart. And TCU, right down to the wire, people were saying, look, it's a miracle these guys continue to win. So what was your thought on that game and the chances of TCU winning it all?
I felt like for TCU to win, the game had to start the way it did. They had to get out to an early lead. They had to get momentum early and get Michigan in a position where they had to play from behind and, chase the game. And it felt like Michigan was chasing the game, and they almost caught up with it, midway through with McCarthy making some plays and the Michigan defense kind of settling down. But TCU has been living on the edge all season. They've played a number of close games to where you always counted them out. You didn't think they were that good, but they ended up always winning those games. And this was just another game, maybe a little different way of getting to the win because their defense made so many spectacular plays that they turned into points. But they made enough down the stretch and were good enough to hold off Michigan's comebacks attempts, because there were multiple attempts. It seemed like it was one of, as you said, the thriller in Manila. It was one of those, punch, counter punch that TCU just had the upper hand. They had, they got one in every round after the bell, that kind of stunned the Wolverines. And, I, like you said, I watched a lot of the games, but it's at a bad time, Defo. You've got a glass of wine in your hand or a cocktail in your hand all day because you're thinking about the evening and how much more you can drink or how much more you can eat, right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of watching the game in the distance, and I watched the beginning of it, and I knew that TCU had a more than a fighter's chance when they scored defensively, and all of a sudden you were like, I don't think Michigan's the type of team that can come all the way back. They can come back, get into the game, but they're going to need a turnover or two from TCU to actually win it, and that really never came.
Wildly entertaining, as was the Ohio State-Georgia game, where Ohio State had Georgia by the jugular throughout most of the ball game, and a very surprising USC-esque type of collapse there at the end, and it did look like Georgia, with this vaunted defense, was incapable of stopping Stroud and the Ohio State offense. They were literally carving them into diced potatoes there, and looked like they had to win. I mean, they had this thing sealed up. We had them.
Yeah.
Right, Georgia's who we thought they were, and end up losing the game. And even with the final possibility of getting this field goal to win it, this guy Ruggles, who had been pretty good by college football standards, I mean, that was one of the worst shanks I've ever seen in a pressure situation. A line drive brick to the left there. That was lucky it got off the ground.
That looked like my drive on 18 at Grand Oaks yesterday.
Exactly.
So it never had a chance.
Right.
Dead in the water.
When you hear that second thwack too, and it's caroming off trees like a pinball.
Yeah.
That's always embarrassing while you're standing at the tee, giving it the old Ernie Palmer peering out there. Hey, where is it? The fairway? But you go, thwack. Yeah. That was my shot.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I could do mine in sound effects.
That
was ugly, though. I mean, and does that haunt a guy for the rest of his life? I mean, kids are able to shake stuff off now, unlike, guys in the past where, you would have carried that to your grave.
Yeah, this may go that far. That was the shot that Ohio State had going into this game, I felt like Ohio State's offense could score on Georgia as good as Georgia's defense is. I felt that was the one thing Ohio State had going for them. They were going to be able to match a score with a score. They were big enough up front to be able to play power football with Georgia. They were athletic enough up front to be able to sustain that line of scrimmage battle. And they had the athletes that were going to overwhelm Georgia if they really got on a roll. And Ohio State's passing game really did get on a roll. I felt this, and I don't know if you guys went in this direction, but it almost felt like to me that the lifeline that Ohio State got was kind of not deserved because they got beat so badly at home in a rivalry type game against Michigan that they ended up getting a second chance.
Yeah.
But they made the most of their second chance. More
like
than
it was
that.
going to be a winner.
They went down to the last play.
Yeah.
Now, I don't root for Georgia a lot. I like Georgia. I like Kirby Smart. I played golf with him. He's a great guy. I respect what he does as a coach. Saying that, I felt like Georgia is the better team. You play 5 games, Georgia's going to win 4.5 of those games. Okay.
Yeah.
So I felt like they actually deserved to play for the national title. They didn't deserve to wait a month, and the lifeline that Ohio State got, which they're a good team, but they had their chance and they got their ass beat at home against.
Yeah, but who would you have put in there? I mean, you couldn't.
No,
have
I'm just saying that's why I was rooting for Georgia because Georgia's been that everybody's had the bullseye on Georgia's back for 2 years. It's hard to play every game against quality opponents and not have a dud come out somewhere.
Yep.
You're going to have a fallback quarter or two, and they almost did, and credit Ohio State for taking advantage. But I was hoping that Georgia found a way to win because for 2 years now, they've been the best college football team, and they deserve to play for that opportunity again.
All right. So a substantial favorite. I think the opening line was 13 and a hook in favor of Georgia in this ball game. So once again, TCU not getting a lot of recognition for whatever it is that they accomplished in pulling off this upset over what was supposed to be a much more rugged Michigan team. I mean, people thought that Michigan had the physicality to just, pound these guys.
I think that's why TCU ended up winning the game. Yes, granted, they get the defensive scores, which is always going to help, and they needed them.
Yeah.
But they were better in the trenches against Michigan than I thought they would be. Their linebackers were fast and big and physical. The defensive front, they had a freshman nose tackle play against Michigan who had, a veteran offensive line. He held his own. He did a great job. And then the quarterback makes enough plays. He's a tough SOB, man. This guy keeps coming at you. Yeah. And they're a fun team. They're a fun team to watch because I think they genuinely like each other. Offense, defense. They're kind of, one. Sometimes you can get, a heavy dominance on one side of the football. It's a drag on the other side, especially in college football where, maybe not so much these days because everybody's kind of a pro. Everybody's getting paid, right? So it doesn't really matter as much.
No, what do you think Georgia's payroll is? I think Georgia's payroll is larger than the Jets.
Yeah, I think TCU. Well, TCU should have some oil money.
I mean, if you're Drake May, right? I mean, are you back at North Carolina this coming season? No.
Well,
when they're offering you like supposedly $5 million, $10 million to go somewhere else.
The quarterback at Wake Forest.
Hartman. He ended up going to
Notre Dame.
Yeah. What do you think that was worth?
That's what it's rumored. Yeah.
He'll be living in Jerry Faust's old house. That, they just
Jerry Faust,
a quick claim deed on. Yeah. No, I mean, how much are they paying this kid to leave Wake Forest? That was a big story there at Wake Forest. It's a touching, heartwarming story. I mean, he's there with crippled children, and he went through all of this stuff.
He'll be leaving.
Loves it. He's
South
been there like
Bend,
7
Indiana.
years. Yeah, I mean, he's had a Blutarski session there. 7 years of college, and now he's available to go to Notre Dame for like $20 million. That's
I mean, I'd be sprinting to South Bend. Both of my hamstrings would be pulled.
Yeah, I wouldn't care if there was nothing to do there. I mean, I mean, don't you wish you were around today? I mean, you can always say that, right? If you had it to do over again, but coming along at the time that you did. It would have been nice to be able to go, like, well, you started at Pittsburgh, so you weren't leaving, but I mean, it would have been nice if some alumni there, like the Primanti brothers, could have greased you with a few $1 million.
Yeah, instead of
No doubt
getting
about
cash,
that.
I got pastrami, egg, and cheese sandwiches. That's right.
So I'm, slightly invested. I mean, I can't say it was a substantial enough amount of money for me to, start crying about it. But it's always interesting as you start examining various mathematical permutations when you're watching a ball game now from a gambling standpoint, and whether or not your points, whether they're being allotted to you or subtracted from the total, are going to stand up. So I have USC getting 3 or giving 3. USC giving 3
Wow.
in that game against Tulane. They go up, what was it, like 45-30. They're up 15
Yeah.
points. Their only way of losing to the point spread would be not to give up 1 touchdown, but 2 with about 3.5 minutes to go in a ball game. And I think also you had Tulane with a marginal number of timeouts left. They had already used one somewhere in the second half, I believe. So they weren't going to be able to really do much with the clock. And they scored 2 plays later. As wow, I mean, what's up with Lincoln Riley? I mean, is that just something that an oversight on his part? Because same thing happened to him in the conference championship game against Utah,
Same thing happened
Right.
where they
to him at Oklahoma.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
Then
you're
one of
right.
the big
Lou.
game is defense.
You're right.
Like,
yeah.
when does he focus on defense? Like, when does he give a crap about defense?
That's a glaring, that's one of those things that you carry over into the offseason, and you guarantee that there's going to be some type of changes either with staff philosophy on defense, because that's happened to them multiple times. And it really, you're right, Lubie, the head coach bears some responsibility, because that's happened just about every stop he's been at.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a worse execution by a special? Oh, well, I mean, you could, go back a zillion different directions on this, but the attempt on the onside kick that followed. I mean, you talk about like stupidity. How did they allow this ball to roll right through the middle of the field for 15 yards and then have a TCU player pounce on it? That was insane. I mean, you just gave up a 2-play, like 80-yard drive. And then you allow this onside kick to dribble right through the middle of the defense. Nobody even makes a move for it. It was incredible.
Defo, I've got a theory on that. That's why when you look and they finally ID the special teams coach on the sidelines,
Yeah.
you expect him to
Was it
have
Joe Avizano? I mean,
you expect him to
what
have
would
a
they do?
cigarette,
Yeah,
a cigarette in one hand, right? And just a flask in the other. And he's just
Yeah.
kind of nipping at the flask and throwing the butt and cuffing it, and yelling at the guys. They all got to be crazy, because you get 1 or 2 shots in a game to make an impact, right? And
Right.
it seems like when you screw up, it gets magnified that much more on special teams than any other position or any other.
That was you got it all the way. I mean,
Yeah,
they're looking
right.
around. Yeah, you got it. You got it.
I got it. Nobody's got it. Yeah,
Somebody's got to pick it up after it gets past 10. I mean, come on, make a
I
move for
know
the
it.
ball. That was crazy. And then, like they just got stuffed on a running play at their own 1 when they incurred the safety. And, they run another play like they're just equally dumb right into the middle of the line. And you're thinking, my God, I mean, this guy's doing everything. Do I sound bitter? I only lost a
No,
couple
I
of
mean,
bucks on this.
I can tell. I can
How do
tell
you
where
lose to the
where your
point spread
heart
there, much
lies.
less lose the game? I mean, that was
Did you
absolutely
guys
insane.
see the how about the Florida State game and the Pitt game, Lubie, too? That was wild at the end.
Yeah.
I only caught the last 4 minutes of the Sun Bowl, and UCLA goes up, and you figure, oh, it's done. And then the kid that only bowl games comes back down, and they find a way to get a kick. But FSU had a crazy finish as well.
Yes.
Yeah, ended up hanging on. That was one where, fortunately, I was on the right side of the point spread.
There you go.
But all right, so looking forward to next Monday night and the championship game. TCU, I was 13.5. Is it still there? 13 and a hook. I don't know if they've impressed enough people to have that line move in another direction here. Did I have it up? Yeah. Oh, 13.
Is it
So
13?
half a point shaved there. People sending in a small amount of capital on TCU in the early going. I have to research this, but I thought they were like 20-1 in a 4-team field, which seemed almost impossible to win, and I mean, you would be in such a favorable position if you had gone ahead and taken them up on that proposition. That would have been great, but unfortunately, I didn't make any kind of move in that direction, thinking they were going to get crushed like a grape by Michigan.
I
Which we
did
boldly
too. I didn't think they had a
predicted.
chance.
Oh, yeah. That Michigan was just going to overwhelm them. All right, Jimmy John's Big Chill, great place to go. We talked about that, and we actually are working on the arrangements, John. You'll appreciate this, to get down there supposedly middle of the month, according to Lubie.
Okay.
That was the last word that he had. Although your brother Dominic's no longer taking his calls, and neither is Amanda. When are we coming down? And we're trying to make it so that Jimmy's there. Obviously, that would be the
Right.
real purpose of going down there. So we'll keep you posted on that. We thank you so
Perfect.
much for joining us
Yeah.
here today. Dolphins, Jets. Do they do it? I mean, do we get the
Well,
9,
they have
or do
to.
we
They
die with
have
the
to do
dagger
it.
there, a bait and a hook?
I think no matter who plays quarterback, I think they've got a chance to win at home. But
Jets look
New
horrible.
England
I mean,
holds all
horrible.
the cards, and depending on how the NFL rectifies the game between Buffalo and Cincinnati, when they play it, how they play it, where and when, is going to determine a lot in the next probably 48 hours.
Well, and I think Mike White is a savior, but there's a reason that he's not starting in the NFL somewhere. I would think not that maybe you could distinguish himself if he really gets a chance, but geez, I mean he looked like Slappy White out there in this game. He was horrendous against Seattle. And
I hope that Skylar Thompson actually starts in the game. Not that I have anything against Teddy, but if Teddy's hurt and can't really grip the football,
they pulled his
and do all
finger
that
back
stuff,
into the socket. He had a dislocated finger.
So they got to wait for the. So I've done that one, and you got to wait for the swelling to go down. And
why didn't he go Ronnie Lott? Just whoosh,
cut it right off.
Thing, put it in a paper cutter.
But actually, when Skylar had a week to prepare, and I think it was the Minnesota game.
Yeah, he's not bad.
He was starting to get things rolling, and I'd like to see him play a whole game and see where the chips fall there.
Well, and we've forgotten, like Mr. Irrelevant is starting for San Francisco. Everybody's darling to win it all. I mean, and as we said, I mean, these guys have a tendency sometimes. You get the backup comes in, he really inspires a team one week. Everybody's screaming, hey, he should start the next week, and then he just lays an egg the following week. But this Skylar Thompson has acquitted himself in a fairly reasonable fashion. So that'll be interesting. You'll be at this game, right? Dolphins, Jets?
I'll be there, yes. We'll do the pregame Dolphins Weekly Live at 11:30 on Channel 4. And then the fifth quarter postgame right after.
All right. And what is your thought? Does it happen? I mean, I couldn't comprehend how the Jets were favored over anybody. They were favored over Seattle last week for some bizarre reason. And I thought Seattle needed to win that game because their playoff hopes are contingent on a bunch of other games that play that day. But they still were alive, right? So why would they have any incentive that they needed to win that game to keep this in place? The Jets now, totally diffused from what was a promising season early on. But I don't know that I've seen a team that looks worse than the Jets at this stage of the season. Even the Houston Texans, are showing more signs of life than the Jets are.
Well, and that's saying a lot, too, because the team they're playing, is on a 5-game losing streak.
5-game losing streak, and they're favored.
And I think the Dolphins are going to win. I don't know if it's going to matter, though.
Yeah.
It all depends on,
who knows about the Bills,
New
Patriots?
England. Yeah. I don't see New England scoring more than 13 points against a Buffalo team.
Yeah.
I just don't. And I haven't really looked to see where the game's being played. I think it's in Buffalo.
I believe it is in Buffalo, yeah.
With that much on the line, I don't foresee New England winning that game. So if Miami can, rally the troops.
It is in Buffalo. It's in Buffalo. Yeah.
Win one at home, at least they'll have a shot moving forward. So I do think they win at home.
Pretty wild and a strange occurrence there last night. And, of course, all of our thoughts are with Damar Hamlin and hoping. I mean, you can't wait to see some good news on that. If you have, even the slightest bit of an emotional fiber to your being. And that would be great. And you would have to think if that happens, then the Buffalo Bills suddenly become inspired and win one for the Gipper type fashion and, go back to being the dangerous commodity they were, in terms of being favored to win the AFC and maybe even the NFL championship this year. John, always a pleasure, my friend. Fantastic.
Thanks, guys.
Great job.
Appreciate
And
it. Thanks, Louie.
always good stuff. And we appreciate you coming on the show. And thanks to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill for bringing you John Congemi and a Pigskin Playbook.